G'day KFC SuperCoaches. We're 8 rounds into the season. There's some big decisions to make, so let's look at who's hot and who's cold. Who's hot this week? James SICILY at the Hawks just keeps putting up big numbers. I've had a bit of a challenging year, you might say, in KFC SuperCoach, but James SICILY was one I got right, had him in my starting team. He was only about 440k to start the year. He's gone up 120,000. He's averaging 111 points per game, which puts him at number 2 overall in defenders, behind only Sam Doherty. He's equal with Jaden Short on total points, which is a fantastic result. He's got 7 tons in 8 of his games, 132, a season best versus Essendon, and he's still not super expensive if you're looking for someone to bring into your defence. Travis Boak is hot. He's always hot. He's been hot for years. We still don't give him any love in KFC SuperCoach. He's only in 5% of teams, but those coaches are absolutely loving what he's doing this year. He's averaging 124.6 without really attracting any attention whatsoever. 149 against the Bulldogs on Friday night. So he's absolutely flying. Fantastic pick. A great pod if you've got Travis Boak. Picking key forwards in KFC SuperCoach is normally something we try to avoid, but sometimes you can't ignore when a player is absolutely on fire, and that is Tom Lynch at the Tigers at the moment. He scored 167 points against West Coast. We know they've got a few issues at the moment. Then he comes out and scores 184 against Collingwood. I think he had 125 at halftime, playing on Darcy Moore. In those 2 games, he's kicked 13 goals, taken 25 marks, and had 44 disposals. So he's just absolutely unstoppable at the moment. He's got a break-even of minus 64, and his next 2 games are against Hawthorn and Essendon. So he could kick a couple more big bags. Could you bring him in just for a really quick cash grab before the buys? It'll be a bold play, but maybe it's something we should be considering. Who is cold after round 8? Zach Butters is really on ice. I really don't know what to make of Zach Butters. I picked him in my forward line thinking this was going to be his breakout year. He scored over 100 in the first 2 rounds, but in the 6 games since then, he's only managed that once. He's had 4 scores in the 50s. Like, if you're scoring 70 or 80 and that's your bad game, you can kind of cop that, but 50s are really tough to swallow. I don't want to trade him out. I still think he's a really good player. Port obviously maybe starting to find a bit of form. They can get better. But we really need to see something from Zach. Otherwise, he is going to become a trade option. Jack Steele has been really good after round 1. He was a little bit quiet then. Some people traded him out. I held fast and he's been fantastic. But he did have a cold game against the Demons, which he's not going to be the first player and the last player to do that against Melbourne. They've got a pretty good midfield. He only scored 75 points. He still had 29 disposals, but unfortunately 9 turnovers, gave away 4 free kicks. So it just wasn't a great game from him. I'm not too worried. I think he'll bounce back. But if you don't have him, he's a good one to keep an eye on because his price dropped 20 grand this week and he's got a break-even of 175 for the next round. So you need to keep an eye on these guys who seem pretty much unattainable with very high prices, especially in the midfield. If they drop one bad game in the next 2 or 3 weeks, could be the time to snap them up. And this is a bit of a sympathy shout out to anyone who had Malcolm Rosas from Gold Coast on the field on the weekend. Only the 18 points. Fortunately, a lot of us had him on the bench, but even then, still not what you want to see. He was actually in the negatives at quarter time and half time, and he managed to get himself into the positives at least by the end of the game. But clearly, scores like that aren't going to get it done. He's not really going to make much more money for us, but hopefully he can provide a little bit of bench cover if he can play a little bit better. I mean, that was a game the Gold Coast won, so he'd be hoping he might score right, but only the 7 disposals. Only a 29% efficiency, 4 turnovers, and he didn't kick a goal or a behind. So, Malcolm, that's not very good. Please lift this week.